I can't stress it enough. I am a relatively type A personality. I, was mama bear with my children. In a work environment, I would always advocate for myself. And with my health, I left it to the doctors. And I really don't believe if I had gotten myself better informed, especially in the age of Google and everything you need to know being literally at your fingertips, and good information, accurate information, helpful information at your fingertips. And that's probably the part I'm most anxious to share. And I go back to the part about, it's just a fibroid. If I had only Googled fibroids or risk of fibroids, it would have helped me. In terms of being your own advocate, I had a rather bad experience. My original gynecologist, when I was having bad pap smears, etc., never, one thing I would say, and this is purely my opinion, if you become high risk and you're in a gynecological practice where the main business is babies, find yourself a gynecological oncologist because they're looking for cancer. When I was told I had to have my hysterectomy, and then was at the very last minute told that I was not going to have my uterus out, I was not told that this fibroid was a risk to me. It was never explained to me. I also was not given the option that you can still have your uterus out, but we wouldn't be able to do it laparoscopically. We would have to do a surgery. None of that was discussed with me. And not only should I have maybe known to ask or push, if someone had, my options weren't presented to me and the risks weren't presented to me. And I think that's really important for people to know. You can't even always rely on your doctors to tell you all the risks. My case was unusual because it was a last minute change because her not knowing I had that procedure. But I was not properly informed to make a proper decision about my own health. And it literally is costing me my life. Because if the uterus had been taken out at the time I had the hysterectomy, the cancer would have been caught in a very early stage, and maybe not even at all, because it's a very aggressive cancer. It might not have been there yet. And I think it's really important. What I learned is that when doctors do their notes, what they'll say is discussed all possible risks. When the doctors speak with you in a pre-op meeting or even right before your surgery, they may say, oh, we're just confirming that we're taking out your ovary and that we're doing this procedure on your cervix, but they don't say any other detail. And it's really important, but because what they will say is discussed all other risks and possible complications. And at least in the state of New Jersey, it is not legal. It's not even legal, I did find this out, for a doctor not to discuss all risks and complications and not to discuss all possible surgical or other options of any kind, if there were medications. But what I tragically learned is that if a doctor puts down discussed all risks and complications, they avoid all liability for not informing you. So a doctor can be terribly and grossly negligent and ultimately not be held accountable. And I think that's so critical for people to understand. And if a doctor watches this, for especially gynecologists and gynecological oncologists to understand, because it's not about a lawsuit later. We don't want to get cancer. We want to know everything so we can find this out before we get cancer. 50-year-old women don't care if they get a full hysterectomy or have to have surgery. They want to be there for their grandchildren and their children. I'm just going to make this point one more time because for me, it's an area that, like I said, the critical point that cost my life wasn't my treatment once I had cancer. It was in the pre-care. And like I said, my doctor did not discuss with me all risks and complications, and also did not give me the option to have a more extensive surgery. And like I said, it's not legal. And I think probably one of the most crushing things someone has ever said to me is when I called my doctor, and I didn't even care about the misdiagnosis of the stump tumor versus leiomyosarcoma. That happens, and that's why you should get a second opinion for diagnoses and so you can get proper treatment. That didn't upset me. I believe that can happen anywhere. But when I spoke to my gynecologist and said, kind of, how could you have, now that I'm educated, now that I've looked at my medical records and I know that my fibroid was growing from 2009 all the way to 2012 when I had the hysterectomy, and then all the way to 2014 when I finally had this terrible cancer, how could you never have brought that up to me? And her response was beyond disheartening. What she said was, we don't like to give our patients too much information and upset them, and your risk of cancer was very small. And in terms of advocacy for yourself, you have to always make your doctor know that you want to know everything and that you get to make the decision about your treatment, no matter how small your risk of a cancer is.